In this video, I want to have a look at increasing or decreasing an amount by a particular percentage. So we're just going to jump straight into a few examples. Now, when we're solving these problems, there's two different methods to get there. One's a little bit longer than the other, but the slightly longer one, a lot of people understand a little bit more, so it makes a bit more sense, so they choose to do it that way. So for all of these examples, I'm going to show you both, and you can choose which method makes more sense to you and which one you want to use. So if we're going to increase $460 by 30%, the first method is to figure out what 30% is of $460. So we would write either 0.30 or we could write 30 over 100, and we're going to multiply that by $460. So if you pop that in your calculator, you'll find out that 30% of $460 is $138. So if we're starting with $460 and we want to increase it by that 30%, we're going to add those two numbers together. So we'd have 460 plus the 138, and that would give us 598. So if we increase $460 by 30%, we end up with $598. So that's the first method, it's 2 steps. For our second method, it's going to be 1 step instead. So for our second method, what we do is we say, okay, this $460, that's 100% of that amount. If we want to increase it by 30%, then we're going to want to find 130% of this amount. So to find 130% as a decimal would be 1.30 because we're dividing by 100, moving the decimal place. And then we would multiply by that 460. And when you put that in your calculator, it's going to spit out 598 straight away in 1 step. So you do have that mental calculation of adding to figure out the 130%, but your working out is really only 1 step instead. But again, it's whichever method makes more sense to you. For our second example, we're asked to decrease 300 kilos by 12%. So our first method, we'd find 12% of that 300 kilos. So I've written 0.12 as a decimal, but I could have written it as 12 over 100 and multiply that by 300, which would give us 36 kilograms as our 12%. Now we started with 300, but we want to decrease it by 12%. So this time, instead of adding it on, we're going to do our 300 minus our 36, which would give us 264 kilograms. So that's the first method. The second method is if our 300 kilos was 100% and we want to take away 12%, well, 100% minus 12% would be 88%. So that means we want to find 88% of that 300. So to do that, we'd write it as 0.88 times 300, which would give us that 264 kilograms. For our third example, we're told that a shirt was originally priced at $35, but now it's on sale for 20% off, and we're asked to find the new price. So again, we can figure out what 20% of that $35 is. So we'd write it as 0.2 or 0.20 or 20 over 100, and we'd multiply that by 35, and that would give us $7. So it's going to be $7 off, so we'd go $35 minus the $7, which tells us that our shirt is now going to cost $28. Now the other method for doing that, if we're taking 20% off, then that's going to leave us with 80%. So we'd have 0.8 times that 35, which would give us that $28. In our last example, we're told that Tyler's salary is $65,000 per year. In the next year, he gets a salary increase of 2.5%, and we're asked to find his new salary. So if we wanted to find 2.5% of that 65,000, we could do 0.025 because that's 2.5% as a decimal, and then multiply that by the 65,000, and that would give us $1,625. So that's the increase he's getting, which means that his new salary would be that $65,000 plus the $1,625, which would give him a new salary of $66,625. Now the second method of doing that, if he's already got 100%, we're adding 2.5%. That means we want to find 102.5%. So that as a decimal would be 1.025 multiplied by the 65,000, which would give us that $66,625 as his new salary. So there's two methods for all of these questions. You only need to do one, but it's up to you which method you choose. So let's have a look at percentage increase and decrease.